Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks. My name is Margaret Hayes, and I am 69 years old. 6 months ago, I buried my husband, Thomas, after his sudden heart attack. We had been married for 46 years. Thomas wasn't wealthy, but he was everything money could never buy: steady, loyal, hardworking, and endlessly devoted. When he died, he didn't leave behind riches. But he left me something priceless. His diamond wedding ring. It was the ring he placed on my finger the day we promised forever. The ring that had weathered decades of love, sacrifice, and survival. The one treasure of his I kept close every single day. So when I discovered it was gone, my heart nearly stopped. Backhand index pointing right. Before I go on, hit subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you will make you question family, loyalty, and the secrets we leave behind. The loss didn't feel real until I turned to the one person I thought I could trust, my only daughter, Claire. She was 32, my pride and joy, the one I carried and raised through years of sacrifice. But when I confronted her in the kitchen, she stood with her arms crossed, lips curved into a smirk I had never seen before. "We needed the cash for our wedding, Mom," she said flatly. Her fiancé hovered behind her in silence, his eyes avoiding mine. At first, I thought I had misheard. What do you mean?" My voice cracked like glass. She rolled her eyes. "The ring. Dad's old diamond. We sold it. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal. It was just sitting in your drawer collecting dust. At least now it's helping us build a future." Her words sliced through me sharper than any knife. That ring wasn't just metal and stone. Thomas had worked double shifts at the steel plant for nearly a year to afford it. I remembered his blistered hands, his tired eyes, but also the pride in his voice when he whispered, "This is forever, Margaret," as he slipped it onto my finger. And now, without even asking me, Claire had sold it off like it was nothing. I gripped the sink, trembling. The smell of Thomas's favorite coffee still lingered in the kitchen air. His presence still lived in this house. And yet my daughter looked at me as if my grief was some nuisance to be brushed aside. "Claire," I whispered, my throat tight, "that ring was your father's. The only thing of his I had left." She shrugged. "You're being dramatic. Dad wouldn't want you clinging to the past. What matters is my future now." Her casual cruelty knocked the air from my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slap the smirk off her face. But instead, I stood frozen, gripping the counter so hard my knuckles went white. And then the phone rang. My shaking hand picked it up. On the other end was a calm, careful male voice. "Mrs. Hayes? My name is Mr. Adler. I run Adler Jewelers on Main Street. You need to hear what we found inside the ring box." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The ring was gone. But the velvet box, the one Thomas had always kept in his dresser, wasn't empty. "Please, Mr. Adler continued, come to the store. I think your husband left something for you. Something important." My heart hammered in my chest. Betrayal has a taste, bitter, metallic, like pennies on the tongue. And that day, I tasted it fully for the first time. My own daughter had stolen from me. And yet, Thomas, even from the grave, had left behind a whisper. A clue. I turned to Claire, who was scrolling her phone like nothing had happened. "You will regret this," I said quietly. Not as a threat, but as truth. Because in that moment, something inside me shifted. I was no longer the mother who bent over backwards to keep peace. No longer the woman who swallowed insults to avoid conflict. I was Thomas's wife. I was Margaret Hayes. And I was not finished. Claire rolled her eyes. "Honestly, Mom, you should be thanking me. That ring wasn't doing you any good. At least now it's useful." I didn't answer. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. Instead, I dried my trembling hands, grabbed my purse, and walked past her. She called after me, but I ignored her. My steps were steady, though my heart quaked. If Thomas had hidden something in that box, I was going to find it. The betrayal of a child is unlike any other wound. It isn't the cruelty of a stranger. It's the cruelty of someone you once rocked to sleep, kissed goodnight, and protected with your whole heart. But betrayal also has a way of lighting a fire. And as I drove toward Adler Jewelers, one thought seared itself into my mind. This was only the beginning. The bell above the jewelry shop door jingled softly as I stepped inside. The smell of polished wood and metal cleaner hung heavy in the air, and the glass cases shimmered under warm lights. For a moment, it felt like stepping into a chapel, quiet, reverent, a place where people exchanged not prayers, but memories carved into gold and stone. Behind the counter stood Mr. Adler, a man in his 70s with neatly combed silver hair and eyes that looked like they had carried 1,000 stories of love and loss. When his gaze met mine, recognition flickered across his face. He set down the polishing cloth in his hand and walked closer. "You must be Mrs. Hayes," he said softly. My throat tightened. "Yes." He sighed heavily, as though he wished he had better words to offer me. "Your daughter sold us a diamond wedding ring earlier this week." The confirmation was like a knife twisted in an already raw wound. I swallowed hard, steadying my voice. "And the ring itself?" His expression was pained. "I'm afraid it's gone. A collector came in early yesterday, paid cash, and left with it." By the time I realized its story, it was too late. I gripped the glass counter, my knuckles white. Losing the ring all over again, it felt like Thomas had died a second time. The thought of a stranger sliding it onto their finger, never knowing the weight of its history, burned through me like acid. "I see," I whispered, forcing steadiness I didn't feel. Mr. Adler hesitated, then leaned down, pulling a small manila envelope from under the counter. His hand lingered on it before sliding it toward me. But the ring box, it wasn't empty. "We found this tucked inside." The way it was folded, the way it was hidden, it was intentional. I thought it might matter. My fingers trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of stationery, yellowed at the edges. And when I unfolded it, my breath caught. The handwriting, tidy, deliberate, was unmistakable. Thomas's. For a moment, the shop blurred around me. It felt like he was standing right beside me, guiding my hands. The note was short. Just a few words. Box 9. First National Bank. June 21st. I read it again. And again. My pulse thudded in my ears. Box 9. A safe deposit box. At First National. And a date, June 21st. That date. I knew it. It was our wedding anniversary. The day Thomas had slid the ring on my finger and whispered, "This is forever, Margaret." My knees went weak. This wasn't some random scribble. This was a message meant for me. "What does it mean?" I whispered, though the question was more to Thomas than to Mr. Adler. The jeweler tilted his head. "I couldn't say. But it was deliberate. Whatever's in that box, your husband wanted you to find it." I pressed the note against my chest, my heart racing with a strange mix of grief, fear, and something else I hadn't felt in months, hope. For weeks, I had lived like a shadow. Each day was just another reminder of what I had lost. And then Claire had twisted the knife deeper, by taking the only piece of Thomas the First had left. But this little piece of paper, was proof that Thomas had been thinking of me even beyond his death. He had prepared something. Left something. And only I was meant to find it. I looked up at Mr. Adler, my voice steadier now. "Thank you. Truly." He gave me a sad smile. "Your husband must have loved you very much, Mrs. Hayes. Not many men leave behind messages like this." The words cracked something open inside me. Love. Yes, Thomas had loved me with a quiet, steady devotion that had carried us through decades. He had promised me forever. And somehow, someway, he was still keeping that promise. Outside, the Chicago air bit at my skin. Cars rushed by, horns blaring, but all I could hear was the thundering of my own heartbeat. The note burned in my purse like a live coal. Why had Thomas never told me about this? What could possibly be waiting for me in a safe deposit box at the bank? I thought back to our life together. The late nights when he came home from the steel plant exhausted, the moments he grew strangely quiet when bills came due. At the time, I chalked it up to stress. But what if there had been something more? What if he had been protecting me from a truth too heavy to share while he was alive? That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the bedroom window, the note on my nightstand. I traced Thomas's handwriting over and over with my fingertips. Box 9. First National Bank. June 21st. The date glowed in my mind like a beacon. June 21st wasn't just our anniversary, it was the day Thomas always made special in small, quiet ways. Scribbling it in the margins of calendars. Writing it on the back of receipts. Even when money was tight, he'd find a way to mark it, a bouquet of wildflowers, a slice of cake from the corner bakery, a slow dance in our living room. Now I realized those weren't just romantic gestures. They had been training me, leaving breadcrumbs only I would understand. This was no coincidence. This was Thomas's plan. And Claire, my own daughter, wasn't going to steal this from me too. The next morning, as sunlight crept across the floorboards, I made a decision. I would go to the bank. I would open that box. And whatever Thomas had hidden there, whether it was money, letters, or something I couldn't even imagine, I would claim it. It was mine. It was ours. And no one, certainly not Claire, was going to take it away. I folded the note carefully, slipped it into my wallet, and whispered to the empty room, "I'll find out what you wanted me to know, Thomas. I promise." The house answered only with the hum of the refrigerator and the creak of the floorboards. But in my heart, I swear I felt his approving smile. The marble lobby of First National Bank was colder than I remembered. Its tall windows let in slants of gray morning light, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Each step I took echoed, making me feel smaller, older, more fragile than I wanted to admit. But I wasn't fragile. Not anymore. I clutched Thomas's note in my hand like a weapon. Box 9. June 21st. The words beat inside me like a second heart. When I reached the counter, the young teller smiled politely. "Good morning. How can we help you today?" I cleared my throat. "I need access to safe deposit box number 9. My name is Margaret Hayes. My late husband, Thomas Hayes. I believe the box is under his name." The teller's expression shifted, flickering with the kind of guarded sympathy I had come to hate these past 6 months. People always meant well, but their pity pressed down on me like a weight. "One moment, ma'am." She tapped on her keyboard, her brow furrowing as lines of data appeared. Finally, she nodded. "Yes. Box 9. It is listed under Thomas Hayes, and a secondary authorization under your name." I blinked. "My name?" "Yes, ma'am. It seems your husband added you years ago. All we'll need is your ID and a signature." My hand trembled slightly as I handed her my license. Thomas had planned this. He had ensured I would be able to open this box without obstacle. As the teller verified my signature, a thought nagged at me: why hadn't he ever told me? What secret had been heavy enough to carry in silence, but important enough to preserve in a vault? Minutes later, a security guard led me down a long, narrow corridor lined with metal doors. The wall smelled faintly of dust and steel. We stopped at a numbered door, 9. The guard inserted a key, then handed me another. "You'll need to turn yours as well, ma'am." I slid the key into the slot, my heart hammering, and turned. The lock clicked. The guard pulled the drawer free, revealing a long metal box. He set it on the table in a small private room. "Take all the time you need," he said, before stepping outside. The room was quiet. Too quiet. The hum of fluorescent lights was the only sound. I sat before the box, staring at it as though it might bite. My hand shook as I lifted the lid. Inside were neat stacks of envelopes. Some thick, some thin, all labeled in Thomas's careful handwriting. The first one read, "To Margaret." My breath caught. I slid the envelope open and pulled out a letter. Thomas's handwriting flowed across the page, every loop and line familiar, every word piercing straight into my chest. My Margaret. If you are reading this, then I am gone. And if I know you, you are angry with me for keeping secrets. I'm sorry. But some burdens I could not ask you to carry while I was alive. I carried them so you would not have to. But one day, I knew you would need to be stronger than ever. That day is now. My hands trembled as tears blurred my vision. I forced myself to keep reading. What I've left in this box is not wealth. Not in the way most people think of wealth. But it is protection. It is truth. And it is yours. You will know what to do when the time comes. Trust yourself, Margaret. You are stronger than you know. The letter ended there. No signature. Just his steady, deliberate handwriting. I pressed the paper to my chest, sobbing silently. His voice echoed in my head. His belief in me. His certainty. But inside the box, beneath the letter, were other envelopes, dozens of them. Some marked with numbers. Some marked with names I didn't recognize. And one in particular that made my blood run cold. For Claire. My daughter's name. Written in Thomas's hand. I froze, staring at it. Why? Why would he leave her anything? After the way she had stolen from me, betrayed me? For a long moment, I considered tearing it open. But no, this was not for me. This was something Thomas had intended for her. And that knowledge scared me more than anything else in the box. Then, at the very bottom, I found something unexpected. A black leather notebook, worn at the edges. Thomas had always kept ledgers, of bills, of hours, of every penny we scraped together. But this was different. I opened it slowly. The first page was filled with dates. June 21st. Over and over again, spanning decades. Sometimes written in red ink. Sometimes underlined twice. The second page was a list of names. People I didn't know. Addresses. Phone numbers. And then, tucked in the back flap, a photograph. It was of Thomas. Younger. Maybe in his 40s. Standing with three men I didn't recognize. Their arms were around each other, their smiles forced. Behind them was a warehouse with a faded sign, Fulton Shipping Company. A company name I had never once heard him mention. My pulse quickened. Thomas had never worked at a shipping company. He had only ever worked at the steel plant. Or so he had told me. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me. My reflection stared back from the polished metal box lid, wide eyes, pale skin, trembling lips. What had Thomas been hiding? Who were those men? And why, after 46 years of marriage, did I feel like I was just now meeting the real Thomas Hayes? I carefully placed everything back inside, the envelopes, the notebook, the photograph, and closed the lid. The weight of the box seemed heavier than steel. When the guard returned to escort me out, I carried it against my chest like a shield. Outside, the city roared as cars honked and buses rumbled by. But inside me was a silence deeper than anything I had ever known. I had come seeking closure. Instead, I had opened a vault of secrets. And the only thing I knew for certain was this. Thomas had not just left me memories. He had left me a mystery. One that Claire would never be allowed to twist or destroy. One that could change everything I thought I knew about my husband. And about myself. I couldn't sleep that night. The safe deposit box sat heavy in my mind, its contents whispering to me like ghosts. I replayed Thomas's letter again and again in my head. It is protection. It is truth. And it is yours. Protection from what? Truth about who? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photograph, Thomas with 3 strangers outside a warehouse. Their smiles stiff, their eyes unreadable. And behind them, the faded sign, Fulton Shipping Company. But Thomas had never mentioned Fulton Shipping. Never once. 46 years of marriage, and I thought I had known every detail of his life. Until now. The next morning, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, notebook in front of me. The pages were filled with lists, names, and numbers. But the pattern wasn't clear yet. I traced my finger over the dates, June 21st. Over and over again. That was our anniversary. But why mark it for decades, long before we were married? The sound of footsteps broke my concentration. Claire walked into the kitchen, hair unbrushed, scrolling her phone like she hadn't a care in the world. "Morning," she muttered, grabbing a mug. I studied her silently, anger rising in my chest. She didn't even know what I had found. She didn't know that her father had left her an envelope. She didn't know how deep his secrets went. "Claire," I said finally. She looked up. "What? Why did you sell the ring?" Her eyes rolled. "We've been over this. We needed the money." "You didn't need it," I snapped. My voice came out sharper than I intended. "You wanted it. You took it because you thought you could. Because you think I'm weak." She blinked, surprised at my tone. Then she smirked. "Mom, you're being dramatic again. Dad wouldn't want you clinging to some old piece of jewelry." I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. "Do not pretend to know what your father would have wanted." Her smile faltered. For a moment, silence stretched between us. She shifted uncomfortably, then muttered, "You're scaring me." Good, I thought. Let her be scared. I wasn't the same woman she thought she could steal from. Later that day, I drove into the city, notebook in my purse. My destination, the county records office. The building was a bland block of concrete, its interior lined with rows of old filing cabinets and humming microfilm machines. A clerk, young and bored, led me to a dusty corner where business records were kept. I searched through index books until my fingers ached. Finally, I found it, Fulton Shipping Company. Incorporated in 1978. Dissolved in 1994. But one name leapt off the page. Thomas Hayes. Listed as co-owner. My knees nearly gave out. Thomas. My Thomas. My steady steelworker. A co-owner of a shipping company? A company he had never once mentioned? And not just that, the other listed owners matched the names scrawled in his notebook. I copied everything down, my hands shaking. That evening, back at home, I spread the papers across the dining table. Claire came in, glanced at them, and frowned. "What's all this?" "Your father's past," I said flatly. She laughed. "You're digging through old papers now?" "Mom, this is sad. You need to let go." But I didn't respond. My eyes were on the photograph again. Thomas with those men. Men whose names were now connected to Fulton Shipping. There was more here. Much more. And I was going to uncover it. At midnight, the phone rang. The sound jolted me upright. I grabbed it, heart racing. A man's voice spoke, low and steady. "Mrs. Hayes?" "Yes." "You need to stop looking into Fulton Shipping." My blood ran cold. "Who is this?" A pause. Then, "Your husband kept certain things buried for a reason. Leave them buried. Or you won't like what happens next." The line went dead. I stood frozen in the dark kitchen, the dial tone echoing in my ear. Someone was watching me. Someone knew. And Thomas's secrets weren't just in the past. They were still alive. I didn't sleep after the call. The voice still echoed in my ear, "Leave it buried. Or you won't like what happens next." but I couldn't leave it buried. Not anymore. The next morning, I returned to the safe deposit box. My hands trembled as I unlocked it, pulling out the envelopes one by one. I chose the one marked for Claire. For hours, I sat in the small bank room staring at it, debating. Finally, I broke the seal. Inside was a letter in Thomas's steady hand. Claire. If your mother gives this to you, then you are old enough to know the truth. I built a life for us out of lies. The company I co-owned, Fulton Shipping, was not what it seemed. We moved things we should not have. Money that didn't belong to us. And when I wanted out, I made enemies. Dangerous ones. That's why I never told your mother. That's why I kept secrets. I wanted to protect you both. But secrets rot when left too long. If you are reading this, then the people I once worked with may come looking again. Be careful who you trust. Even blood. Asterisk. I dropped the letter, my stomach twisting. Danger. Enemies. Lies. This was bigger than I had imagined. When I got home, Claire was waiting. Her arms were crossed, her face pale. You opened it, didn't you? She demanded. I froze. What are you talking about? The letter. Her eyes flashed. The one Dad left for me. Cold fear prickled my skin. How would you know about that? She laughed bitterly. Because I already knew, Mom. I've known for years. My heart stuttered. What do you mean? Claire stepped closer, her voice sharp. Dad wasn't as innocent as you thought. He told me everything before he died. About the money. About Fulton Shipping. About the men who would never forgive him. He made me promise to stay quiet. And you, she jabbed a finger at me, you were never supposed to find out. My knees went weak. So that's why you stole the ring. You weren't just greedy. You were desperate. She didn't deny it. The debts, she whispered. They came back, Mom. The people Dad crossed, they've been pressuring me. I thought selling the ring would buy me time. But it's never enough. Her words hit me like stones. My daughter. My own flesh and blood. Caught in the very web Thomas had tried to escape. Before I could speak, the sound of tires screeched outside. Headlights flashed through the window. A knock thundered on the door. Claire's face went white. They're here. My pulse roared in my ears. Who? She didn't answer. The knock came again, louder this time. Mrs. Hayes, a voice called. The same low voice from the phone. We just want to talk. I grabbed Claire's hand, pulling her toward the back door. But she yanked free. No, Mom. If we run, they'll never stop. We have to end this. The next minutes blurred. Men stepped inside, 2 of them, broad-shouldered, faces hard with years of anger. They looked at me, then at Claire. You owe us, one growled. Your father owed us. And now, someone has to pay. Claire trembled. I don't have anything left. I stepped between them, my voice steadier than I felt. You won't touch her. The men sneered. And what are you going to do, old woman? I reached into my purse and pulled out Thomas's notebook. The one with names, dates, addresses. I held it up like a weapon. You think Thomas left me with nothing? My voice rose. This book has everything. Every name. Every deal. Every person you've ever worked with. If anything happens to me or my daughter, it goes straight to the police. And you know what that means. For a moment, silence. Their eyes flicked to the notebook, then to each other. One of them cursed under his breath. The other grabbed his partner's arm. Let's go. And just like that, they left. The roar of their engine faded into the night. When the door shut, Claire collapsed into tears. I sank beside her, holding her like I hadn't since she was a child. For the first time, she let herself break. "I'm sorry, Mom," she sobbed. "I thought I could handle it. I thought I could protect you. But I just made it worse." I stroked her hair, my own tears falling. "No, Claire. Your father made mistakes. But he also left us the truth. And with the truth, we can finally be free." Days later, we met with the police. I handed over Thomas's notebook, the names, the dates, the evidence. The officers promised to investigate, to put the past to rest once and for all. For the first time in months, I felt the weight lift. The ring was gone. But Thomas had left me something far greater: strength. The courage to face the truth. And though my marriage had been built on secrets, my future with Claire would not be. Now, whenever I pass the jewelry store, I don't think of what I lost. I think of what I gained. Because the velvet box had held more than a ring. It had held the truth. And the truth, no matter how painful, had set us free.